Before we get started, we just want to thank Old Republic Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety, as well as NASBP virtual seminars. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. I've got with me today my co-host, Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark, thanks for being on.
Hi Kat, absolutely. Glad to be back.
We're talking about another exciting topic today. We're going to talk about AI in construction and construction law. And to do that, we have with us today Denis Serkin. He's a partner and chair of the international practice with Peckar and Abramson. Thanks for being on, Denis.
Pleasure, Ted. Thank you for having me.
So, Denis, before we dive into this topic, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of construction law?
So, I am a partner at Peckar and Abramson, as you said, and I've been with Peckar and Abramson for what will be this November 20 years.
Oh, wow. So you're just starting out.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years here and there. But how did I get into the field of construction law? As my background is, I attended an engineering school. I worked part-time for a government agency in New Jersey, first as an intern and eventually as a project engineer. I ended up attending law school at night while working and managing various projects from start to finish. And ultimately, at the end of law school, I was fortunate enough to get a position at DNA. And as they say, the rest is history. And 20 years later.
That's terrific. I'm sure that background of being out there in the field has helped you in your practice as an attorney as well.
It doesn't hurt. It definitely doesn't hurt. You know, there's certain things I understand right away or need minimal explanation from a client, to understand. So I do think it is advantageous, as certainly well. So those 4 years of sleeping 4 hours a day, I think they've paid off.
Well, and it's interesting because we're talking about that experience from 20 years ago or so and how much things are changing right now in construction and construction law. To start out, why don't we just talk about AI and how it's changing everything right now? Can you tell us a little bit about the role of AI generally?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I think that's the right approach because I think there's a lot of misconception about artificial intelligence because there's just such an amount of information and news noise about it that we're all experts, but we're also at the same time really not sure where it's going to take us. And I think that's really the right way of approaching this. No one really knows where things are going. In fact, by the time we release this podcast, some of the things that we discuss may be all news. That's how fast the field is evolving. So that's one of the issues. It's also one of the most exciting things. But from my perspective, and when I say my perspective, based on what I've read and the very smart people that I follow, that dedicate their life to studying artificial intelligence and developing it, artificial intelligence is basically a general purpose technology. And what do I mean by that? It's something akin to steam. It's electrification. It's something of that sort. That's the magnitude. It's the internet. It's not a small thing. Its potential is tremendous. And as you indicated in the lead up to your question, it does have the ability to influence and change every single aspect of our life. How? To be determined, because in truth, every single, if you look at the most popular large language models that are out there, ChatGPT, et cetera, every iteration that comes out is so much more fine-tuned, so much more powerful than the previous ones. It's actually incredible. So computer technology at its Moore's law, where it speed, Moore's law, where its speed of chips doubles, I believe every 2 years. Well, AI is going at a significantly faster rate in terms of its development. And again, it's a general purpose technology, which in essence, historically means that it has the power and ability to influence every single thing that we do now, in the immediate future, and in the far future.
Wow. So, construction industry is not necessarily known historically for productivity gains. But all of a sudden, are we finding ourselves at a place where all of a sudden our EV is going to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds? Are you seeing emerging technologies being adopted in the industry, AI being one?
You make a great point. And I think the last time I met with Dad in one of these events, he said that the most interesting thing about our industry, construction, is that if you look at statistics for the U.S. government from various departments and you look at a couple of studies out there, you're probably familiar with what I'm going to say, but construction is the only industry that hasn't decreased its efficiency, actually decreased from the 60s and the 70s, which is amazing. And construction has a well-earned reputation of being resistant to change. Brick is brick. But I also think it's an old misnomer. I think in this competitive world, construction companies are becoming much more agile, much more flexible. They're really, and it's not every construction company, let's be clear, but certainly the more aggressive and the more progressive ones are investing in technology. They're looking at management techniques, which certainly Lean has been around forever, and its progeny, and they're trying to adapt to this field. So yes, I do think it's starting. Yes, I think there will be changes in the construction industry. Do I think they will be super fast? Probably not. But I think because of the nature of artificial intelligence, I think it'll be unavoidable because it'll start permeating pretty much all the tools that are utilized on a regular basis in the construction industry. Look, from everything, from drafting emails to preparing claims, to responding to notices, to tracking progress, to analyzing schedules, to coming up with alternatives for a particular, let's say, a recovery schedule. How much labor do I need on the project? Where do I get my materials? How soon should I order? What happens if there is a, blockade in a particular country that's preventing, the export of tile or marble that I'm looking for? Where else can we get it? Those type of things, and they're certainly natural for algorithmic help. And whether somebody likes it or not, those tools are already out there. And I think they will proliferate even more. And I think they will impact virtually every single aspect of the industry. And they're already doing that. That's the fate. We're not talking about what happens tomorrow. Things are happening today. And, my comment wasn't meant to be flippant. Things are really moving so quickly. And one of the things that I do before I speak on this topic is spend a few hours checking what's out there. And this is in addition to the usual reading I do and follow up and research into the field, just to make sure that I hadn't missed the big breakthrough. And it's always ever evolving. And for construction, I think it's a natural field because there are a lot of documents, a lot of documents. Nowadays there are when I started practicing, I still went to large warehouses. I had, premier apartment pass at Iron Mountain. You go in there and, you have 200, 300, 400 boxes of documents on a large project. Now you get a hard drive. It's 2 inches by, half an inch, and it has 20 times more information. The large project that I was fortunate enough to work on, at the beginning of my career. And all of that information has to be dealt with, and that's the reality. But that information also presents an opportunity. Because construction contractors in general, anyone really that's involved in the industry have always looked at ways to interpret that, whether it's bidding, whether it's claim review, whether it's insurance limits or fees to be charged. And all of those, to one degree or another, was driven by data. Some of this data was in spreadsheets, some of this data was in your grandpa's notebook, if you've really been around. But to at least to one degree or another, legitimate information. And I think advent of artificial technology, tools will accelerate that and will help hopefully make more informed decisions.
I mean, it seems like almost we're kind of at a unique point in the sense of what you were alluding to earlier. So you have labor force issues, you had supply chain issues. All of a sudden we have the advent of technology that wasn't there before, and we're a fragmented industry with a lot of data. So how do you put that all together to finally get your productivity gains? And it sounds like you're seeing the incremental movement towards a direction where that technology is going to really be a facilitator to address some of these issues that have arisen over the last 5 years or so, and then to put us in a good position. And I imagine, is that true both for the design side and the construction side?
Well, I think the design side is already significantly benefiting from from introduction of artificial intelligence. Review tools, there are a couple of people I've been speaking to, can't give away too much, but their companies have been developing AI tools for more than 5 years, which absolutely blew my mind. How many people you talk about artificial intelligence 5 years ago, much less really make it a priority? There are people in the AI, in the AE, space that do think that at some point in the very near future, it'll be the standard of care to run your designs through artificial intelligence. And even if you take a simple example of a young engineer who is designing projects or she's designing projects, what's the feedback that you traditionally get, right? You may meet with your supervisor once a week. Well, artificial intelligence or tools you deal with artificial intelligence, looking at a particular firm's past projects, looking at industry standards, looking at all the information that's out in the world, you may be able to provide feedback on a much quicker basis, helping develop expertise quicker. So I do think the A&E space will definitely benefit. Being able to utilize historical information about topics. Okay, how's this facade installation going to work? I have a question about a particular connection. Okay, well, has this question been asked? It's been asked before, maybe 50 times in different permutations. Well, now, the good thing about the promise of artificial intelligence is it's really just creativity. It's not a simple database because it's the ability to generate new, unique answers based on old information. So it's not simply finding an answer that's exactly the same. It's take past experience, past information, and create something new. Something that answers your specific questions. In essence, it's there to please you. To put it in terms that a lot of people use to describe artificial intelligence. It wants to answer your questions, which obviously creates dangers, because I'm sure you've heard about hallucinations, false answers, etc.
Right.
Those are real. And the good thing is that they're decreasing in frequency as we learn more and as the flagship LLM models, advance in their development. With every iteration, see less and less of that. But purely philosophically, I think the rightest approach to artificial intelligence is that it's not going to replace us. Yeah, at least yet. But it's going to augment the expertise that we have. So it's going to become a very powerful tool that'll help and assist us. So the right way to use artificial intelligence is do this do this particular task statically because I don't do it because it's boring. The right way is like, okay, you're an engineer. I need you to specify or at least prepare a design of a particular connection for me. And these are the characteristics. Can we do that? Yes. Okay, here's the design. And then an engineer will look at it, or an architect will verify it, double check it. And if necessary, modify it. We'll have a back and forth potentially in the system on how maybe the system needs to change. The design is just generated to match her criteria better, or his criteria. And that I think is where the promise lies. It's the ability to create.
So going beyond design, it seems like it's going to help a lot in the area of project management as well, if you look beyond that initial design phase.
Oh, project management is right, because I am seeing and aware of tools that literally sit on top of commercial project management systems. They look at their correspondence coming in real time. They look at sentiment analysis, meaning the tone, their capitalizations, their colorful words, their jargon being used, to reflect somebody's unhappiness with something. Is there language that should clue you in that there's a potential claim brewing? Is there something that somebody later will say was constructive notice, potentially? Okay. That may not look like a notice, but certainly may smell like a notice at the end. So there is software out there, and there are tools being developed. Richard didn't call it software. It's tools that are helping people identify that and address it quicker and in real-time scheduling. Certainly much easier to use a tool that can do 100 permutations every given schedule within seconds, and then again an experienced scheduler or team schedulers to look at them and figure out what's best and most appropriate for the project given your experience. But certainly organization and governance and construction are tremendous. Labor allocation, site efficiency, I hadn't followed up on this in a while, but I was actually very interested in a couple of companies that started analyzing site space allocation. One of the most common issues in urban construction is I don't have site space, limited to, the width of a former, townhouse, and I'm building a hotel. So I need to stage equipment, I need to stage structural steel, I need a staging area of concrete, whatever else we be. I don't have space. And what's interesting is that the research done by these companies, at least one of them, showed construction sites are something like 40% that is issued, allocated and utilized space. So yeah, probably there are ways to teach an old dog new tricks, or at least maybe help them catch the ball better. So without a question, I think these tools will keep helping make the industry better.
Right. So it sounds like it's, profound impacts for construction projects themselves, but kind of going back to the original focus of, what does it portend in the construction law arena? So I know construction law or any field of law kind of tends to lag behind technology adoption, particularly when there's no precedent. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of the discourse in legal circles about AI and construction law?
Sure. And the biggest topics that we're seeing now is obviously legal implications. If AI assists in creating a design, what if there's an error? Those issues have yet to be really determined or litigated. How does it affect insurance? If AI participates in creation or design, liability obviously is important. Notices drafted by AI. All of these things really haven't been tested. I mean, ultimately, I would probably take a position that at the end, it's the individual that signs their name, whether to a set of drawings or to a letter, that's responsible. That's why I say it's a tool. And in fact, I think it's a tool that needs to be part of the conversation, but the legal implications of AI really haven't been explored, but I think they will be in the near future. Because the systems are cybersecurity, they're a big hot topic. How do you protect all of this information? The very nature of how large language models are taught. They basically acquire information from sources. The commercial LLMs, they pretty much have read everything that's ever been published in the world. Copyrighted or uncopyrighted, allegedly copyrighted. There are a couple of lawsuits going on about that. That's how they've learned. That's how they develop. Now, a lot of the LLMs are actually starting to create synthetic data. There are information that they're using to learn. So obviously that creates an issue. If you're talking about a system that's helping design or answer questions, like let's say let's say you set up a tool that does facade inspections or answers questions, what is the basis of its knowledge? What did you utilize, engineering company, construction company, or software company,
right?
Versus the industry to teach this system? Have you vetted its answers? How do you know the system is not hallucinating? What kind of fine-tuning in human interaction did the system undergo through in training? Those are all interesting areas, and they're all possibilities for potential claims down the future. In the very near future, and I'm sure we'll see them. And then the biases, that are inherent. Again, I don't necessarily think that biases are so much going to be prevalent in terms of construction as, what's the basis of picking one being versus another. But at the same time, these systems, a lot of times reflect their creators' thoughts about the way the world should be. Or they're we're the creators, we're the economy, we're their backgrounds.
Right.
There are a lot of possibilities here. And we're really just at the beginning of things. And this isn't regulated, this isn't standardized, at least not in the US. And we're coming most of the run.
So it sounds like that folks in this space really need a thoughtful attorney to help them think through some of these issues, kind of focusing on maybe some hallmark principles like control and integrity of the model and things like that, to assess their risk. Yeah.
You mentioned it's not regulated yet in the U.S. Are you seeing more regulation in other countries?
China has taken certain steps to define what AI is and to put in certain guidelines. And I'm by no means a deep expert in Chinese state of artificial intelligence regulation, but they've been very aggressive in terms of how the systems develop. Here right now, it's pure entrepreneurship, which is great, I think. But it also comes potentially with dangers, because we really oftentimes don't know what triggered the system, how, what information it utilized, why it's giving particular answers. We can fine tune it if we see an answer that we don't like. And, that will change the system's subsequent responses to queries, but that's not exactly, going to a book that, has been vetted, is in its 30th edition, and figuring out, what the standard is, for connecting two pieces of pipe. It's very different.
Right. So are you seeing at this point in construction contracts that there's a disclosure that AI is going to be used at a certain process or component of the project? Or is that a little bit too far out there yet?
It's a very good question. I personally haven't seen a contract yet because, as you said, we lag. So the client contracts I'm working with right now, whether it's huge or trying to avoid disputes, these are projects that have been going for 2-3 years. And it doesn't really address that stuff. But I will tell you that artificial intelligence is out there right now in tools that are being utilized every day by participants of the industry, whether they know it or not. The major contractors are developing their own tools. And again, some of the low-lying fruit are safety. Sensors, drone footage, ability to identify somebody working without a hard hat, for example, or unsafe ladder, or not tethering. Those things are fairly simple to pick up. So there's been a tremendous push there. But in terms of contracts addressing the proper use of AI, I haven't come across that yet. But when we certainly talk to clients, and they ask us these questions and we present at conferences, we do tell them, you absolutely should use AI. I think it needs, I'm of the opinion it needs to have a seat at the table, and I think we all should be using it. How? That's a different question. Be careful, but we need to be used to it because it is a general purpose technology. I don't think it's going away. And we need to be comfortable with it. We can't sit and wait for a perfect version of it. We never come. But the number of people are basically saying that today's LLM, today's AI is the worst AI that you'll ever use. Yeah, it's just I think you may as well get on the train and keep going. But yes, a very good question, which I probably will have to think about. I need to actually address AI. I still think the liability is a liability. I think it's more of an interesting question for a firm that uses AI, how they mitigate their risk if there is ever an issue.
Right, and it seems like it would be important to have some sort of disclosure by all the parties so you understand what technology is being applied and then could decide, I guess, how best to plan for that. But I imagine also AI is being used in other technology that currently employed. For example, maybe they're using drones to look at the, where the project is and having AI analyze the footage, for example, or something along those lines. You had mentioned, I think, something about using AI for supply chain decisions. Is that something you're currently seeing right now with some clients?
I am seeing that, and not necessarily with clients, but
okay.
I had the pleasure of talking to folks that are actually advising one of the states in the U.S., and they built a digital model of mobile roads. And it's for capital planning purposes, to real time, the shadow monitor plan and figure out when certain roads and key infrastructure points like bridges and dams need repair. So if they have an advanced analysis of their capital, they could start planning when to let projects out way further in advance. They could also start procuring critical supplies. Steel delays, 18 months to get steel. Okay, well, I'm 5 years away from needing potentially to replace that bridge. So how about 4 years out, I start looking at bulk pricing or I watch the market to see if the steel dips and I can make a procurement decision at that point. Optimization of assets like airports. How do you optimize traffic flows? How do you optimize concessions? How do you optimize the maintenance cycles?
Right.
That stuff right now is in play, and it's not so much a function of technology, it's a function of really smart people coming with ways of applying the technology to solve these problems, as opposed to somebody 40 years of experience and a number two pencil, or a spreadsheet walking around and based on, historical know-how, saying, okay, we'll probably need to do this in 5 years and maybe need to do this in 10 years. Whereas now you have a holistic picture. It's called essentially a digital twin. Okay. Let's say their own network, and you could predict pretty good certainty, when things will need to change, what things will need to be done, and you can plan for it accordingly. And things like labor, labor shortage. There's less and less labor in the construction industry. It's getting older. Certainly, there are possibilities of how that could be maybe alleviating the future of efficiency and better planning. And, supply chain, I think, is just absolutely right. Because it's good data. It's good information.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm a construction client coming to you and I say, I think I want to employ AI technologies in certain areas within my processes, but I'm not sure, what that portends for me from a liability standpoint. Do you have a process that you will take a client down to kind of think through some of those risk issues?
We do. We sit down, we have a discussion. What type of tools are you looking at? How rapidly are you going to roll them out? Who's rolling them out for you? Do you have the staff? Are you bringing a consultant to do this? Have you spoken to your broker? Have you spoken to your insurance agent? Have you gotten to the due diligence? What are their regulations? What are their requirements? What type of projects do you work on? What type of disclosures do they have? Are you working on federal projects? Okay, do you know what the cybersecurity requirements are for federal projects?
Right.
Working on public works, period. What's the data retention? What is data now? Because everything that's generated, by these millions of sensors and drones and data points, that's all data now. So how much data do you really need to preserve? And, those 200, 400 boxes that I was telling you about, that was the entire project. They work this big, I'm holding my hands out 2 inches apart. They can have 50 times more information on it. And you're responsible for all of this. If you're working on a public or a government project. What do you do with all? How do you safeguard it? So all of that, becomes part of the discussion. But in terms of development of tools, look, we could advise the clients to try to help them plan. That it takes a degree of entrepreneurship and bravery to. And I think at this point, it's pretty much a necessity to dive in and start developing, or at least talking to folks that have developed tools you want to procure and maybe implement in your systems. But it just has to be done intelligently, carefully, and with understanding. Because it's not going to solve all the world's problems. It could help. And the key is, like I said, is getting into it and starting to utilize it.
In cases where something goes wrong on a construction project and we end up in court, it's going to change construction law as well, because there's so much more data out there that now needs to be reviewed and would be included in that process. Is that right?
I think you're spot on. And I think that's one of the concerns for a lot of the smarter general counsel out there, that, it's great, I can track every piece of work within every workaround. Now comes significantly greater responsibility. If there's ever litigation, there's that much more data out there. And it's everywhere. And, just the litigation process, jumping through all that information is more complicated. Now, granted, there are vendors that have tools, including vendors with artificial intelligence tools, to help you easier process that information, but litigation certainly is not going to get easier because of all of this information proliferation data. So
maybe a follow-up question then is, where do you foresee the cost of litigation going if there's broader adoption of AI in the industry? And is that a inducement to look at how disputes are to be settled ahead of time to, address cost issues?
Good question. I think any new technologies at the beginning is going to be a little bit more expensive, to remove a little bit of a sticker shock in the beginning, but I think the benefits of cost savings over time are going to outweigh the initial outlays. And I think ultimately, and eventually, as we get deeper into the process and more participants enter the market, and I'm talking specifically about litigation support,
right?
I think the prices will come down, because what the most expensive part of the dispute, for the most part, before you get to trial and you go through the appeals, is discovery. Discovery could take years. You're looking at, hundreds of thousands, millions of documents potentially. Early in my career, I remember when ESI really came out and we had our first few cases. And there were points where clients would look at the cost of ESI and cost of settlement was less. And they would make a business decision to try to drive towards a resolution. With a lot of the ESR platforms that I see out there, and especially the ones that we use, the process is not simpler. It's much easier now to take a huge population of documents and win them down to a more usable set, and ultimately selecting whatever exhibits you need for mediation, arbitration, trial. And I think that's going to get better, because the ultimate promise, the thing that's really going to make it better, is that is when these systems start selecting documents contextual. And not only wise am I hitting on it percentage-wise, it's irrelevant, but this is why I selected this document, because it talks about a schedule delay. And you've been asking me about a schedule delay, and our claim is schedule delay. So I think you should look at it, attorney, and read this document. Here are 15 other documents that are similar. So I think when we get to that point, and I think it'll happen soon. I think it'll happen soon, because I know there are a couple of vendors that are really knee deep into this. I think the cost, the entry point will be high, but I think the ultimate cost of the litigation will be less, because it'll bring significant efficiencies, and you will not potentially need a team of your own people, whether in-house or contract, to review own documents. So I think that aspect of it will become more efficient. But I also think that with this technology helping hopefully to identify claims earlier and to bring claims to the forefront. So let's say the project people are reviewing claims and they're putting them in the drawer. Maybe somebody at risk management will get a flag and say, hey, on this particular project, I'm seeing correspondence, I'm seeing keywords flowed by based on my experience of having reviewed our previous 5,000 projects that I think we're headed towards a claim. In that scenario, potentially a risk management professional would be able to say, hey, you know what? Project manager, project executive, let's have a chat. Let's try to resolve this and figure this out and analyze this before it ever gets to a dispute. So maybe early dispute resolution possibilities will increase. Certainly on projects that have dispute boards, this should be something that could tremendously help. I see positives, and but it also depends what side you're on. If the information is not in their favor, you may look at this and say, that sucks, until we need it.
Well, I love the thought of that it can increase the possibility of claims and cost mitigation, that this would be a great tool or step in that direction. So that's very exciting.
I think that's, I don't want to call it a low-lying fruit, but I think that's one of the more immediate promises. And there are vendors out there right now that are working on kind of sentiment analysis, so that flags can go up. Particular emails come in right away. Risk managing, in-house counsel, or even outside counsel get get flags or a project executive and say, hey, you really need to look at this. And, I don't need to tell you, addressing something during the project right away. It's always, at least in my experience, way more cost effective than waiting until the end where you have a multitude of claims and years of bad blood.
Right. Such a good point. So it's been great talking to you about AI and construction law. And I know you mentioned early on the last time we talked, and that was on the NASBP virtual seminar, AI and construction law. So if anyone wants to check that out, we'll include a link to that virtual seminar in the description for this podcast as well. Any final thoughts before we let you go, Denis, on what people should consider if they're looking at AI and these changes that are coming their way?
I would just say, please don't ignore it.
Mm.
It's not going away. There are good people out there that write about artificial intelligence in general, as a science, as a business, as a direction of where we're headed. Start using it, even if it's to reorder your shopping. Once you become comfortable with it, don't let this technology just develop without you participating in it. Become comfortable with it, because the more you use it, the more you will realize what its advantages are, and you'll also learn what its disadvantages are. I do think it's, I do agree with folks to describe it as fundamental to the way forward, and I don't think it's an opportunity to be missed, and I think it's a mistake not to start getting educated on it. And if you do decide to use it in your company, be careful. Be careful, leave out the vendors that you work with, and be realistic in terms of how much you should bite off if you decide to invest and bring these tools to your business.
Thanks so much, Denis. I know this space is changing constantly, so maybe we'll get you back on again with us sometime to talk about what the latest and greatest is in the area of AI and construction law.
Well, thank you.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just want to say thank you again to Old Republic Surety for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com.